h2K will be sending Giants to the regional qualifier and will be advancing to face Origen.
I didn't expect h2K to show up so strong.
Wow, he's jumped in and he's taken so much damage, and Ryu stays alive.
Going 3-0 against Giants was a huge confidence boost.
I do think that h2K is definitely better than they were in the regular season, so therefore we have to look out for them.
This time, if we go to fair games, we have a good chance to win against Origen.
Niels jumped on by Lulex. Does he have the damage? Cadell against the wall. Yes, he does. Niels is unstoppable.
If confidence means that I just go into the game and I'm not afraid of who I'm facing, then yeah, we're confident.
And welcome to the European LCS Summer Semis, where it's come down to 4 teams with their eyes on the finals in Stockholm, Sweden, and also the 2015 World Championship. We're coming to you live from our studio in Berlin, Germany. As you can see, everybody is extremely ready to go. The fans light up, and there's a lot of them. Absolutely packed studio. There is Origen, not jumping in the pool just yet, but reflecting on their game just before, and playing a little catch as well, maybe like they will do with h2K. h2K is walking in the building there with h2K with them as well as Lulex, so we know that that is a possibility for this series. I'm EpicSkillshot supporter here with James Stress O'Leary, as well as our guests, LCS jungler Marcel Dexter-Veldkamp and the coach for Rocket, Yamato Cannon. Thank you very much for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
It's going to be a good day, so let's start by pulling up that bracket and seeing where we ended up so far here in the playoffs. Of course, the Unicorns of Love beating out Rocket in that intense series. We'll talk to you about that later.
Sorry, there was a little fist bump action going on
on
stage while the graphic was up. I got a little bit sidetracked. But over on the other side of the bracket, h2K swept aside the Giants in a 3-0 in the quarterfinals. They'll square off against the second seed Origen today. Keep in mind, all 4 teams in this stage of the playoffs will be joining us in Stockholm, Sweden. Yeah.
What are your impressions of how the playoffs has gone so far? Of course, Yamato sadly on the receiving end of the loss.
Unlucky.
Unlucky. Well, unlucky. We'll see who gets lucky here today. There's more on the line than just the summer finals, of course. How far teams go in the playoffs will determine how many champion points they are awarded, which is very important to keep in mind, because with the most points at the end of the season, you get qualified for Worlds as a second seed from Europe, of course, after whoever wins the summer split.
So yeah, h2K coming up in this game right now, it's really important for them to win, because if we assume that Fnatic is going to win against Unicorns of Love, they're most likely going to qualify through the most champion points to direct. So if h2K manage to win this game, then they don't have to play the 3rd and 4th game in Stockholm.
The other side of it, though, is if they end up in the 3rd place game, if Origen win today, that gives us a really hype game over in Stockholm. Again, if Fnatic beat the Unicorns, it will put us in a situation where h2K and the Unicorns are battling for a World Championship seed in our 3rd place game.
Yeah, definitely, and the champion points also determine the seeding for the regional qualifier, Stress, which is also super hype after the playoffs.
Yeah, because the winner of the regional qualifiers, the team that makes it all the way through to the finals of the regional qualifiers, they're going to get the 3rd seed to Worlds. So win the regional qualifiers, run the gauntlet, and you're in.
So Yamato, you are obviously with your team Rocket in there. What are your chances, you think?
I feel we have a big advantage as the other teams are actually playing still. We have some weeks to prepare. We see all the strategies. So I think we have advantage in that regard. But I also feel that we were kind of warmed up in regards of best of 5s, simply because UOL was the first best of 5 we ever had as a team, and I think coming into the gauntlet, I feel pretty confident.
All planned, just going to run the gauntlet and do it that way. Okay, yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, with those points in mind, today's matchup between the 2nd seed Origen and 3rd seed h2K has massive implications, as said. And then following that best of 5 here in Europe, the North American LCS kicks off with their first semi-final between Counterlogic Gaming and Team Impulse. And with such a wealth of perspectives on the analyst desk this week, we want the open the floor to you. Send your LCS playoff questions at LOL Esports with the hashtag AskTheDesk, and we'll see what you want to know later in the show. Now, we're going to dial in on the matchup at hand between h2K and Origen, our very first semi-final. And, well, 2 teams who were challenger teams in the beginning of the season as well, but have both gone through such tremendous growth. What is your opinion on just, in general, the way these teams have grown from challenger to this?
I think OG coming into the split was really... I think they exceeded all expectations because they went pretty much undefeated until they faced Fnatic. And then they had a slight dip into performance.
We beat them, actually.
I'm sorry, I forgot this. Yeah, but no, but coming into the split, OG was pretty strong. Then had a slight dip in performance, but I think right now in playoffs, where h2K and Soaz have been performing all the time, I think this is where they're gonna show up again. So I expect OG to come out strong today.
In regards to h2K, I think when they actually started to play, I think they had the most intelligent approach to the game. They tried to play the most consistent way possible from the start. It didn't work out in the start, but as you kind of learn to play in the most consistent way, the final product is going to be the best possible. And with that approach, I actually enjoy what they did and how they've actually grown throughout both splits.
Well, we'll see how they turn up today. Before we go any further, let's run down the lineups rather, starting with h2K on the blue side for Game 1 with Odoamne, Lulex, Ryu, Hjarnen, Kissing, and their coach Prowley. And on the other side, OG, starting at the red side for Game 1 at least, Soaz, Amazing, h2K, Niels, Mithy, and their coach Leduc. You mentioned on the strategic approach of h2K to the game. Dexter, if there is one thing that you feel like OG is better than h2K or h2K is better than OG at, what would you say it is?
I think from a jungle perspective, I think OG probably has a slight advantage here in that matchup because I think Amazing is just right now, he's performing a bit better, I think, than Lulex right now. I'm not sure how good he stacks up against Betongnocke, but I would say that Amazing has the advantage over both junglers. And in terms of bot lane, I think we have a slight advantage towards OG too, but I think Yamato can expand on that thought. Why?
Well, pretty much when I'm thinking about the bot lane matchup right here is the fact that Origen, I feel they have a wider depth in their champion pool. I think individually they're pretty equal, AD carries and supports, but I feel the depth of their champion pool on Origen's side is just a huge advantage, simply because they've shown up with a Vayne against the Sivir, which is like a counter matchup in some regards. And I think h2K tends to blind pick their bot lane very often with the Thresh blind picks, and I think that's very dangerous against Origen.
We'll see, and we'll dive into the champion pools a little bit more in a second. Something I do want to touch on more holistically for the teams is that they don't do well when they get behind in games. If we look at the statistics, h2K, in 7 games, they've fallen behind at 20 minutes. They lost 6 of those games. Origen fell behind at 25 times, and they lost 5 of those games. Why do you think that is with two teams that are at the top of the table? Stress, maybe?
I think that we were talking about this a little bit earlier before the show, and we were talking about how good Origen are as a mid-game team. Yamato, that was something you feel pretty strongly about, and I think generally that's a massive trend that once they get ahead, they're able to snowball, but when they're behind, it does, when you're playing as a mid-game team, become difficult to actually regroup in a loss. I wonder whether you wanted to maybe expand a little bit more on that, Yamato.
I would like to add, when it comes to high level of play, Origen h2K, of course, higher level European teams. When it comes to high level play, there comes with the slight respect for the enemy team. You don't sit and wait for them to do mistakes. You try to set yourself up and your composition for to win, pretty much. And usually that doesn't work out because it's a risk. And I kind of respect this type of play because when you're behind, you're supposed to lose anyway.
A couple of people that really try and make it work and get in front early for their teams are the junglers. You touched on it already. Let's look at it a little closer. Amazing versus Lulex, at least here in Game 1. And, well, you mentioned that champion pools might be a big factor coming into this one.
So, I mean, coming into this match, it's really important to say that Lulex's best jungler has been Rek'Sai for the entire split, while he has a backup of Gragas, and they both have like a similar champion pool, but at the same time we saw a bit of a meta shift in the jungle role where we see more carry-oriented junglers with the Runeglaive coming in Nidalee, for example, and Elise right now. And we know that Amazing, when he was on TSM, he has been playing Elise pretty much as his main champion. So I'm not very concerned about Amazing, but I'm not sure if Lulex can play Elise. Or I think we saw Betongnocke play it, but to what extent can they play it in the best of 5? So it's going to be really interesting to see how deep the champions pool are from Lulex. If Rek'Sai and Gragas both off the picture, maybe, because one gets banned, the other gets picked away, or I'm not sure what to see, but we have to see what the first game shows us pretty much, and if the jungle bans are going to be a thing.
I think the biggest thing about the jungle is the unique dynamic that h2K gave us last week when it comes to actually the ability to bring Betongnocke in as a substitute. That's really unpredictable, but it also can have a negative impact on the team itself for h2K. I mean, you look at, for instance, top and jungle synergy. That is very different with a different jungler. And you know, when we look at the map just as a whole, we wanted to also focus in on the top lane. So if that does get disrupted, how will the different dynamics of the top laners play into this? Because there are aspects of both Soaz and Odoamne that have very different styles when it comes to top lane.
I mean, yeah, both have been playing different styles, but also obviously Rumble has been a very, very big pick for both teams. Soaz undefeated on Rumble currently, but I also think Fizz has been seeing a lot of play, and especially in this series, we're gonna see probably a lot of Fizz, while also having the possibility of Shen maybe. I don't see both teams as a Ryze player, but Shen might be a pretty big pick because both of the supports also use it. So it's a really big flex pick in that series potentially.
I think it's interesting though with that one, if the Rumble's banned, if the potentially Shen is banned, will Soaz go to the off tanks when, or the AP champions when we know Odoamne prefers to go to just straight up tanks himself? I think that's going to be super interesting to watch.
Yeah, and on top of that, we also took a look at the mid champion pools, and well, there were a lot of champions available for both sides, both veterans. Xpeke versus Ryu, who I don't think there's one or the other that you can say, oh, they will not know what to pick because these champion pools are so vast. So, Yamato, what do you think it will come down to?
Well, I'm taking a look at this graphic, right? And I see a lot of champions that have fallen out of favor in the current meta. And with that in mind, I feel Victor is going to be the contested pick, but I feel a Victor ban is better for h2K than it is for Origen, because I feel Origen kind of need the Victor, because I don't see like the Vladimir, for example, that Peke has played. It doesn't really make sense when you blind pick up blue side. So I think if h2K decide to ban the Victor on red side, I think they have a massive advantage.
But for you, it's going to come down to the bottom lane. Do you dare, you guys, making a prediction for the series?
If I have to make a prediction,
yeah,
I think OG 3-1.
I'm thinking 3-2 Origen, simply because I want to give Origen the edge simply because of how h2K have structured their pick and ban in the previous games. But after the first game, I think I will have a clear idea what I think about the matchup. But I'm pretty sure it could go either way.
My prediction kind of depends on something Prolly talked about last week, was he said I didn't know which h2K was going to turn up. Not exactly the safest thing for your coach to really say. If you're a fan, that's a little bit worrying. If h2K show up and they're the top form, I think h2K can take it, but it'll be 3-2 if it is the h2K that we saw in Spring Split.
Yeah, we'll see how everything comes into play. We'll also keep a track of all the picks that are available and how the matchup unfolds. But for now, we're going to send it over to Pulse for some insider insight into our semifinalists.
Thank you, Sharks. I'm here with Prolly and Leduc ahead of their game. Now, first off, Prolly, kind of want to talk about Betong Yaka as you brought him in last week. We've seen the dynamics over in Korea with Uzi-Hoon and Faker, but what dynamic does Betong Yaka bring to the team that Lulix necessarily wouldn't?
Well, they both have two, actually really different playstyles and champion pools that complement the playstyles. So it's actually pretty nice because if we feel like the game really kind of needs a change, we have that option because they're just a lot more different than, what you'd think.
Yeah, diversity, I like it. So, Leduc, in this matchup, you have a 2-0 head-to-head over h2K. Now, how do you think this matchup is going to go? How has your preparation been? Have you been focusing on h2K or just yourselves when you've been coming into this game?
Our preparation was definitely focused on ourselves. This also has to do with the fact we played h2K in week 9, so we haven't practiced against them for more or less over a month. In the series against Giants, there was also not that much information you could get out of them, so it was fairly pointless to focus the preparation on them. Yeah, as long as we play our game, I think we're going to be fine.
Okay, well, we'll see how it works out in-game. Now, back to you, Prolly. We had it over at the desk about how you said last week which h2K is going to turn up. How has your preparation been? Do you think the right h2K is going to turn up today?
Man, yeah, with the Jekyll and Hyde situation, we really have to just mimic what we did last week and kind of bring that out. Today, I think everything has gone pretty well, so hopefully the right one will come out, but, we'll have to see.
Okay, well, best of luck, gentlemen. We're going to throw it over to the caster desk to take away this game. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Paul.